Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a nice day. Today we are back with something a little bit different. Now a little bit different isn't like my usual little bit different, which is just building something quirky and flyout. Today we're not even playing flyout, today we're playing automation. For those of you who do not know, automation is basically a car designing game where you're able to build your own engine, suspensions, frames, bodies, fixtures, and put it into a car. If you own BeamNG, for example, you can then take your car that you've so helpfully built and import it into BeamNG as a mod, and then you can literally drive your own car, and it's pretty nice. I've had automation for quite a long time now, but I haven't really played it, and I was kind of waiting for an excuse to play it. So then I had someone known as Mr. Chips, who is a moderator, I believe, or the community manager of the automation Discord server, asked me if I actually wanted to make a video on automation, and I'm like, yes I do. I do want to make a video on automation. So, you know what, I do have my excuse to play automation, so here I am. So, automation, it's pretty simple. You start with picking a fixture. What I'm working on today is like a 90s Japanese car. So you start with picking a model that you can work with. You can sculpt the model a little bit later on, but you start with a model that you can pick from a long list of models from different years and time periods and whatnot. And then you, I think first you select the frame type and you select the frame material, the panel material, the suspension types, which I did a McPherson in the front and a double wishbone in the rear, I believe. Then after selecting all of your chassis and suspension setups like engine layout, if it's rear wheel drive or not, all that junk, longitudinal front engine is how I did it. After that point you go on to the engine building. Now for basically all this stuff I was completely new to automation, so I got a friend of mine, or a moderator on my server known as Big Ham, to help me out, so you'll hear him a little bit later. So after selecting all of my chassis stuff, my panel materials and all that, I went on to building the engine. You start with the lower, well actually first you start with the family of engines, so for this one I decided to go with an inline 4 since it's a very lightweight Japanese sports car. I was going to do an i4 turbo ultimately, but that's what we started with. From that point on, I believe it was around 2 point something liters, we went on to the lower end of the engine, so that's the crankshaft, the conrods, and the pistons. You select the materials for that. You select like if you have like a harmonic balancer for the crankshaft and all that. And then you go on to the upper end of the engine. From here, this is where you decide things like camshafts, compression for the engine, springs and lifters, valves, all that junk. And also, interestingly enough, RPM limit. This engine had a very high RPM limit. I think it was right in the upper 8,000s or mid 8,000s, so. But anyways, it ended up being a dual overhead cam turbocharged inline 4 engine. Actually, on the topic of turbocharged engines, when I was first building this thing, I thought it was like flyout. Flyout is, the manifold pressure is what you usually set, and you set it in bar. 1.1 bar would be 0.1 bar above standard atmospheric pressure. In automation, setting something to 1.2 bars, which I thought was just that was the wastegate pressure for the turbo. I thought 1.2 bars or 1.3 bars would be just like a very small little turbo, and that's what I wanted to make originally, but my inducer and exducer were way too large. But anyways, 1.2 bar, that's like 16 psi, so I ended up making this like an 18 psi turbo with a massive... everything was wrong with it, basically. So later on I ended up revisiting it, realizing my mistakes and why I was producing like 320 horsepower. And we made the turbo smaller, increased the aspect a little bit to change the spool time, and then we made the wastegate pressure like 0.4 bar instead. You know, just a small little turbo to give you an extra boost in the top end of your performance curve or your power curve, nothing more than that. From this point on, I got to select the paint, which, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I had a little bit of trouble with it. Thank you once again to Big Ham for helping me with this stuff. But, you know what, you had like shininess, flake, pearlescence, strength. I didn't want to do pearlescence, obviously, but... and then just your color. I think I made it like a bluish gray, like a smoky gray, with a good amount of flake to it, and that was my final color. But honestly, I should have gone for like a Mazda red. Whatever, that's fine. From there, I started working on the actual shape of the body of the car, which was kind of interesting. I ended up playing around with it a little bit. You can do some really goofy and disproportionate stuff with the vehicles. Luckily, it's pretty customizable in that regard. Especially coming from Flyout, my biggest concern was going to be the lack of customizability. But as my first car, I was definitely not... Well, I guess I was a little bit overwhelmed with all the fixture options, but that comes a little bit later. Ultimately, for the full 3D modeling part of it, with the dragging the parts around, I was pretty happy with it. It was a little bit simpler than something I would have liked, but it got the job done, and I was happy with it. What's nice is you also get to select things like safety features, actual quality of the parts and vehicles you're making. Increased quality increases engineering time and costs, but makes it better. And of course the brakes. I selected the brakes, the brake cooling, the paint, the aerodynamics. All of that stuff is customizable. Things like increased brake cooling, for example, will reduce the aerodynamic qualities of your car, but it will increase the actual cooling of the brakes, which is very nice if you're making a sportier car, for example. So, because when brakes get too hot, they fade and lose power, and you get a bunch of problems with them, so obviously you're going to want them to be cooled. Now there are a bunch of graphs on the screen going back and forth. There's like an understeer graph, a gearing graph, a cooling graph, a brake graph, an aerodynamics graph. Basically all this stuff is for is just the actual qualities of your car. Like it'll basically tell you everything you need to. Like the oversteer versus understeer graph tells me that my car will oversteer, so I try and fix that a little bit later. At least try and make it a little bit more neutral. I know it is a bit front heavy, so I'm always going to have a little bit of an oversteer problem, but trying to make it more neutral. You know, you can play with your suspension to try and get your car to act better. You can play with your aerodynamics, with your brakes and its cooling and their size. I went with, I think, 2 pistons in the front and 1 piston in the rear for the brakes, or maybe I did 2 pistons on both. And I made them vented discs in the front, definitely solid in the rear. You could even select your safety quality. Something that was pretty funny is you could set your safety slider all the way to 1940s and just select none. So if you wanted to, you could have 0 safety features in your car, and it does technically make it lighter. So, you know, if you don't care about the people buying your car, sure, absolutely, go for it. Or maybe if you're making a race car. You know, I'm also here selecting steering type. I believe I go with just a manual rack and pinion steering. This thing was so lightweight, I wasn't really concerned about power steering, especially as a little 90s JDM car that essentially reminded me of an S2000. I think I was fine without. That'll make all the JDM fans in America happy anyway, so... And then we get to the fixtures section. Now this bit I am going to speed up a lot because I spent way too much time trying to figure out what on earth looked good, and I was really struggling with it. You know, for this part I'm definitely glad that's like 11 times speed. I mean, I could show you guys the authentic process of me making these fixtures, but if I did, it would just look something like this. Okay, so what do I need to do to get actually good looking headlights?
No, you see, the problem isn't the headlights. It's more of the body.
Okay, but what do I do about it?
You can morph the body to try and make it better.
I don't want to. I like my shape. I just like... I thought that would work. Hold on, this is the cardinal align tool will help. It's not helping us. It's not doing anything. Hello, sir. How are you doing today? Yeah. It went pretty horrifically. It was really funny though. I wish I had more audio on clips of that, because we were being a bit silly. But you know what, if that was the case, I probably wouldn't be able to keep track of where it was, so who knows. But anyways, a lot of this fixture process is just me trying to figure out something that looks good. That was easily my hardest part. It's because the front of it is so sloped that all the headlights kind of just look weird when you try and put it on. There is probably a better headlight I could do, but ultimately I was happy with my final result. I'm not going to show you guys the entire process of me trying to build a headlight. So instead, I'm just going to show you guys my car when I drive it. So with all of our bodywork out of the way, we were ready to drive. Alright everyone, I'm here. It's a nice and cool morning on the automation test track. You can tell by the condensation coming out of my exhaust. That's actually really cool that's a feature in Beam. That's the only reason I knew it was cool here. But it's a nice and cool morning. I've got a cup of coffee and my trusty Xbox controller, and we're going to test out the car that we built. No, it's my first time on the automation test track, so I'm gonna suck at it, being entirely honest with you all. But let's not delay too long. Without further ado, let's go. Actually, no, let's delay a little bit longer. Something I noticed while building this thing, I'm sure there's a way to change it, but whenever I hit my brake lights, my front lights come on. So that's nice. Not really. Alright, now let's go. One thing I notice about this thing, very first thing I'm noticing, is that it revs out really freaking far, which and oversteer. It oversteers very easily, but that's alright. Keeping on the throttle, powering out through this turn helps with that. Keeps the rear end loaded. Oh, I did not need to brake that much, but okay. I do quite like the track so far. I just did a little free camp flyover of the map before doing this, and it's a really nice map. I'm sure you guys have seen it before, but believe it or not, this is actually my first time really here. I remember my brother was playing Beam once, and I test drove one of his cars on the automation test track, but I've never really done it myself, so oh, it does not oversteer at high speeds though, so that's good, I guess. Oh crap. Whatever. That's fine. We didn't die. We're good. Ooh, is that like a little incline test there or something? I gotta go check that out sometime, except make sure to actually hit the brakes here. Alright. This has gotta be the sport package of this car or something, because this is, a bit too quick for a regular consumer car, I'd figure. Ooh, that's, that grade of that hill really plays with my oversteer a little bit there. I like that. And I think that's the entire course right there. Yes, it is. Awesome. Alright. Well, first test lap complete. Let me tell you guys my thoughts on the car a little bit. So first things first, as I mentioned earlier, oversteer is kind of the biggest issue. Like, well, it doesn't really oversteer on throttle at high speeds here because of the little wing in the back. I set a pretty decent angle on that wing in the back, so it does not oversteer at higher speeds. But at lower speeds, I think it's just because the weight balance is very front focused. It's very, yeah, like that. It will oversteer very quickly and get away from you if you're not careful with it. Second, it revs out really high, which I am very happy with. I love high revving i4 engines. As an American, I shouldn't be saying that. I should be saying this is communist propaganda, and I should only like V8s that are like 10 liters and rev out to 4,000 RPMs like a freaking tank engine or something. However, I like it. Let me try and take this turn better, because I absolutely horrifically screwed it up last time. So a little bit of brakes here. A lot more brakes here. Didn't quite get that apex, but that was a lot cleaner. Alright. You know, let me take that incline track over there. Absolutely no clue what this is for, but, looks neat, so. Oh, I'm assuming this is for towing. And testing if you can climb these hills still. Okay. Oh, I really like this. Oh yeah, 33%. It even tells you the grade of the hills. Nice. Anyways, I am completely getting distracted here. What's internal view looks like? Ah, it looks like I'm driving from the passenger seat. Interesting. But yeah, I do quite like it. It feels modest. It feels modest for my first car. It is a little bit powerful, but it's not an 1,000 horsepower minivan. So, you know, I'll at least call that a win for now. Though I gotta say, automation and BeamNG, I've always loved BeamNG as a kid. Loved messing around with, like, the D-Series especially. I don't know, that's probably because I had the demo as a kid, but I really did enjoy just messing around on Beam, and now the ability to literally make cars and import them into Beam and drive them and actually physically model the engine yourself and the suspension yourself and the aerodynamics and braking, all of that yourself. It's just, that's my bread and butter, you know? Automation plus Beam is a really awesome combo, and I'm really glad it was recommended to me, so. Oh, I messed that up. We'll do victory donuts in the parking lot. But, anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.